We've helped a lot of long-term care facilities and social service organizations over the years. Some of them have been easy, but few have been as technically challenging as the one we're going to talk to today. Today we're going to talk to Elissa Gamble, who is the CEO of the Hawthorne Seniors Care Community. Ask her why she chose to go with adaptive, what the situation was like then, and what it's like now. Let's get into it.
Hi, my name is Elissa Gamble. I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Hawthorne Seniors Care Community and Port Coquitlam Senior Citizens Housing Society that owns and operates Hawthorne and has for nearly 60 years.
Elissa, it's nice to have you. Thank you very much for doing this for us. We appreciate. We're trying to get some case studies so prospects know what it is to expect working with us. So kind of setting the scene, can you give me a quick overview of Hawthorne and the type of care that you provide?
Yeah, sure. So we are part of Port Coquitlam Senior Citizens Housing Society, which is a nonprofit that has a mission of providing care and housing to seniors. Our relationship with you is specifically with the Hawthorne Seniors Care Community, where we have the honor and privilege of caring for 131 people in our long-term care program, including some specialized long-term care and memory care, and 70 people who call our tower their home, where they receive assisted living, which is a lower level of care, really more supportive, and they live quite independently. So very high level, that's who we are. And then there's a whole bunch of very caring, talented, and driven staff who provide all those care and services every day.
Amazing. Amazing. We work with a bunch of long-term care facilities. We have a bit of a soft spot in our heart for you. Before working with us, before working with us, what do you think, what were the biggest IT challenges that you were having?
I think many, especially nonprofit long-term care and healthcare in general, and including us today, we always want to try to get every dollar we have as close to the people we're caring for as possible. So, we're slow and loath to spend money on things that aren't direct care and aren't direct care related. And I think that's a terrific ethic and one we hold dear. But when I came, there had been what I call a technology debt. So there had just been a long period where not enough investment had gone into technology, and specifically, I would say maybe communication technology, but in general. And for a long time, that probably was okay because it kind of worked. And so I think a well-meaning leader would say, well, why would I spend money there when I can spend money closer to the people? And I think that's a really honorable ethic or value. But there does come a point where you just need to catch up and risks get introduced that ultimately those risks flow downhill to those people we're caring for. So in the end, it was something that we needed to address, and it was a significant deficit. There've just not been sort of those gradual periodic updates and advancements that could have, should have happened maybe. And so we were kind of doing a big jump. If we were here, we had to jump up to here to get to sort of a current standard in technology. And so it was a bit of a leap, and certainly we needed some help and support to get there.
Yeah, it's one thing to definitely to try and spend money closer to the care and well-being of the residents, but it's another thing to put the residents' care at risk.
Yeah, when you get to that place where your email might stop working, well, we need that because we get critical information about the care we provide, or maybe their data, their personal health data might not be secure enough because those things haven't kept pace. So all of those kinds of things and many more examples were something we had to deal with.
Now, presumably you had some assistance with IT. When you met us, you already had some, but what made you realize that maybe it was time to go outside of what, current setup was?
Yeah, well, we were working with an independent consultant who helped us with our day-to-day IT needs and was really helpful and super dedicated and did really great work. But we started talking to him about, hey, and he was so good at helping keep us working and keeping everything up and running, even though it was outdated. But he just always did the best he could with what he was. This was what it is, so do the best we can within this bucket. And I said, okay, I think we need to and he agreed, we need to go from here to here. How do we do it? And he said, you need more than me to do that too. So that was when we had to reach out to find some other supports with different skills, talents, abilities, and experiences to help us get there.
Okay. So why did you decide to partner? I guess this kind of gets into the meat a bit for us, but why did you decide to partner with us as opposed to bringing it into an in-house position or another provider?
Yeah, so I'll start with the in-house one. So I think this is a question organizations of this size ask a lot. The temptation is to say, well, why would I go spend that money on a managed IT solution or a firm when I could just hire a guy or a gal or a person to come and be our person? People like having their person, right? That they know you, they know what you need. The analogy I use is that when you do that, you're going to get a person and they're going to have a set of skills and knowledge and experience. And it's likely going to be, if you're lucky, a very knowledgeable, but it's going to be in a vertical. They're going to know this. And they may know a little bit about some of these other things, but they're not likely to have deep knowledge in all of the areas because no one person can. It's not realistic. So the alternative, maybe you'll find somebody with very shallow knowledge in a broader range of things, and also maybe more helpful in some situations. But when you need to deep dive to solve a problem or to transition or any of those things, then you need that deep knowledge. So we decided that, particularly because of the size and scale of the changes we needed to make, that we needed somebody who could bring deeper knowledge in a whole bunch of different areas and really work as a partner sort of across that sphere. That was really important to us. And then why you guys, the second part of your question, we looked at lots of different firms. And when we were doing that, as is our duty, what I thought adaptive, and specifically when I met you, Ian, you really brought a sense of partnership and that we'd work together to make sure this works for everybody, and it has to work for everybody. I mean, adaptive can't lose and we can't lose. And you had a model where the fees would include the projects because it's so hard when you're not an expert in it. Like, so somebody said, "Hey, Elissa, what do you think you're going to spend on IT projects this year?" I'd say, I don't know. I'm not that's not my area of expertise. And I wouldn't presume to even be able to make an intelligent guess about that. So this model allowed us to tackle some of that technology debt, tackle some of those big projects, and have some, from a budgeting perspective, some confidence that we'd know what it would cost us.
That's great. I appreciate the answer. If memory serves, you have in your life some people that can help advise you on making kind of strategic IT decisions. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's probably fair.
Did you speak to anybody? Did you have any concerns or hesitations before you moved forward with any managed IT company, but specifically, I guess, us, and how might those have been addressed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of my challenges was, even when I started to look for an IT partner, like for an IT firm to partner with, I would, you'd say, okay, give me your quote. And somebody would bring me a list of very technical language, what all the things they could do, provide, and offer. And again, not my area of expertise. I have just enough nerdy techie knowledge to be mildly dangerous, but not enough that I'm an expert in any of those areas. But I do have some people, some of the spouses of people who work here are experts, like I would say are like some of those deep experts in some of these various areas, and was able to go and say, tell me a little bit about what we need to make sure. What are some of the checks and balances we need to look for? What are some of the key areas that we need to make sure are covered? And so we could get some of that feedback just to really as a validation that what we were looking at made sense, not just with Adaptive's quote or Adaptive's proposals, but others as well, just to make sure that we know what we're doing.
Yeah, great. Do you remember what the onboarding experience was like?
Yeah, I guess.
What was your perspective on the onboarding experience? I guess obviously if it was challenging, you'd have remembered that.
Yeah, I think the onboarding experience was pretty smooth. Things that were lovely. It was like Adaptive was able to work really closely and collaboratively with the consultant who had been helping us. So that, he was open. Like there was none of that territorial stuff going on or anything, and so everybody, there was the handoff from the technician to technician worked really smoothly coming on. And we kind of just got folded into the Adaptive family in terms of how you get support and when you get support and all of that. And it went quite smoothly. We very quickly started to enter into, and partly because some of our systems and servers were imminently dying. So my hesitation around the onboarding was only because we very quickly went from onboarding into a very big and complicated project almost immediately.
Do you remember what some of those things were that we had to tackle right away?
For sure. So we had a very aging server that housed an Exchange server. So this is the thing that would power all of our email, and it was dying. And then it started dying a little bit faster. And so we started to look at already very quickly, we had to look at mitigation strategies. We're already planning to replace it. Do we need to buy an external hard drive to quickly back it? All of these things started happening very quickly. But so some of that, the physical hardware was very aging. The Exchange server version it was running was old, and none of it was the appropriate thing to be using. And transitioning and so we wanted to go to the cloud, to Microsoft 365. So that was the project. And transitioning from Microsoft Exchange to 365 should be a pretty no big deal project, unless there's a 20-year gap in the versions that you're trying to do. So
you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
It gets trickier because if you go along and version along and then, okay, now we're here at Microsoft Exchange, whatever, we're going to go into the cloud, easy peasy. But if you're jumping from if the bigger the jump, the more problems there will be. It went reasonably smoothly. It was tricky. It took a bunch of time. We had dedicated adaptive people. We had dedicated people here working through it. But it went, I think, as well as you could possibly hope,
It went
given the
as well.
magnitude of
Yeah,
the change.
sure.
Magnitude of the change that we were undertaking. It wasn't perfect. There was some corruption of some data,
Yeah,
surprisingly, but a surprisingly small amount of data was corrupted given the magnitude of the change. That
I
kind of thing.
equate that project that we did for you to like changing out the engine in a 57 Mustang as it goes down the Autobahn. Like you have to do it as it's moving down the highway. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that was a challenging one for sure. But, do you remember ever getting an extra invoice from us because it was like more complicated
No.
or
So
not
that was
once,
the
right?
thing, right? Yeah, it was what you said it would be. It was this project, and it was super complicated. Maybe it was more than you guys thought it would be, but it didn't matter. It was just all part of it was just my IT department, and we just got it done. And
Mm.
there was no surprises.
Yeah. So is it now? We also had a couple other things happen in your network in that initial early time, and this things that like Adaptive definitely wasn't signed on to be responsible for. Like for instance, I think if memory serves, we had an issue with your nurse call system
Hmm.
early on.
Yeah, even before, I think it was the cordless phones too. We had an issue
Right.
with the cordless phones really early on where they weren't working. Maybe that was even just before adaptive. It was a really complicated problem that we couldn't figure out. And I think the nurse call is a good example. It just for fun died also right around the time that it's this technology debt, right? These things
Yeah.
age and then they die. But so the nurse call system did die, and adaptive, even though, as you say, it wasn't really ever part of the scope, but they came to the table to help us understand and confirm because part of it is, okay, well, sure, it's not working. We could go buy a new one. But is it not working because it's broken and we need to fix it? Or is it not working because it's broken and can never be fixed? And just that Adaptive just had enough of a breadth of knowledgeable people that they were able to help us confirm that at least what was required, what next steps would be, and
Hmm.
what we would need to what we would need to do.
Yeah, and I don't think we ever sent you an extra invoice for any of that either, right?
No, and you
Yeah.
probably should have.
Well, maybe, but our thing is like we're Alyssa. We just re-signed our agreement, didn't we?
Mhm.
So I'll say like upfront, our thing at Adaptive is like we want to keep you forever. We want to have Hawthorne in the Adaptive, as you called it, the Adaptive family forever. So we're less concerned about that like one-time invoice than we are about like making sure the agreements are always re-signed. So I'm really glad. So is it safe to say that like around that time is when you were like, okay, maybe this seems like it's working with Adaptive? When we're doing the exchange migration and the even
Yes.
stepping in on the phones where maybe it's not within the scope, but we're still taking care. Is that safe to say that that might have been the moment? A
Yeah,
moment.
there were lots of moments. I mean, I think it was very quickly pretty reassuring just how we worked together through that difficult project. When things would come up, how Adaptive would step up to help us when needed, where needed. And yeah, it was lots of moments of reassurance in that way.
Hmm. Hmm. So what move? Fast forward. That was a couple of years ago. What's it like today? What's the impact been?
Yeah, so we are now on this much more current version of systems on Microsoft 365. We have servers that are within, not outside of useful life and are within warranty periods. Like all of these things that we have, our data is much more secure and protected from a cybersecurity perspective than we were. That risk, I think, has been mitigated. The risk of email dying at all has been fully mitigated. I mean, all of these material risks to the organization and to the security of data I think have been mitigated. And it is what you always hope IT will be, a thing you just don't think about.
You're not thinking about it as often. It's not
Right.
keeping you awake at night. Is there any change in the way that your team is working day to day?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're not a super high tech place. Most of our work is side to side, person to person. But the where and how we store data. I mean, at the time when we met Adaptive, if you ever needed a file from somebody, they'd send you a copy of the file and it would be on their physical hard drive on their computer. And you'd get a million versions of every. And now we work in an environment where people are able to share links to documents that are shared on shared drives that we have appropriate access to, and just have these different tools and ways of organizing ourselves that we just didn't have before.
how do you think that having IT under control is going to change the way you think about the future of Hawthorne? Like, you're not amassing this technology debt on a regular basis. Like, we're speaking fairly regularly about where we need to be. Is there anything that we've like taken off your plate that allows you to go and spend time in other areas or that sort of thing?
Yeah, like I think I would have some confidence that, well, there was just recently. So we'd done some of the desktops, updated them during that process, but not all.
Mhm.
And then come sort of this fall, all desktops we had some that couldn't be upgraded to Windows 11, which needed to happen. And actually somebody from Adaptive was able to, not that it was an adaptive project, but connect us with another organization who was evergreening their computers. And the things that they were getting rid of were still plenty good enough for us. and
Oh,
and
that's right. I remember that now. We were able to put you in touch with another one of our clients that was end of lifing some of their
they were
machines,
going to
but they were
recycle
still an
them.
upgrade. We were able to upcycle you, right?
We got upcycled, and so those didn't go to a landfill or recycling, and we were able to replace those last machines, and everybody could get up to Windows 11. So, and your question about off my plate, but for Adaptive, I would have had to been thinking about, oh, Windows 11, do we have to do that? Does it matter? What does that mean? Do I need to do something? But
Mhm.
instead, I got the call saying, hey, you need to update. Here's how many machines you have that aren't on Windows 11. We need to figure out what to do. And then I just described how we solved it.
That's amazing. Listen, I want to be very respectful of your time you've given to us. So we're starting to get close to wrapping it up. So last question I've got for you. If another organization in healthcare asked you like, hey, what should we do about IT? We're starting to amass this technology debt, or we've just become aware of this technology debt. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would, the temptation to stay with that one guy who knows you and keeps things running is a very short-term plan. And I would encourage people to go and find a partner who can help them with a bit of a longer view,
Mhm.
who can help them not just like it's the difference between survival and then sort of thriving and being able to plan for the future. So you need to get out of survival mode and get into a mode where, and we're never going to be technology first organizations that we aren't now,
Mhm.
we never intended to be, but we need to get to that place where the systems and tools that support the care we're delivering meet the current standards so that we can ensure that that sensitive data is protected. We can ensure that those communication tools that are so important are reliable and always available and be always forward thinking. And you really need a partner with a broader skill set and that breadth of talent to really be able to, I think, realistically stay in that future focused space.
Elissa, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. We'll wrap it up there.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. Appreciate
Yeah,
everything you guys
appreciate
do
it.
for us.